Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first show tonight. Well, actually, yeah.
Wait, is there another show?
Is this the first show? Our first show together, the weekly Wednesday night party. And I'm Zod Ryder, and with me is Robert Meyer Burnett and Mikey Sutton.
Wow, this is a very lucrative show for you tonight. It hasn't even started yet.
Well, people have been waiting for this show. You have to understand that this is a show that's been in the making for.
And I have to apologize for being the big flake that I am. And last week, I don't know why I spaced, but
we're gonna make everybody happy here with the reason why. And this is it right here. The puppies. I can
absolutely adorable.
So we'll put that for a minute. It looks like we lost Robert temporarily. I'm sure he'll be back.
And my microphone got cut off again. I can't like that.
Yeah, I don't know what that was a weird start to the show.
Hey, you think your puppies would give us more energy, right?
Well, we're gonna get started. I just want to catch up with the chat here real quick because there's some super chats in here. We've got the Savage Bat with a 100-pound super chat saying Wayne Enterprises. Thank you so much, Savage Bat. I'm looking forward to streaming with you.
That's definitely a Wayne size investment there, I think.
Definitely. And then from the Burnett work, from Robert Meyer Burnett himself,
awesome. Party
on, Zod. And here we are. This is the first of our trio stream here. And Robert is back.
My browser, there I was making a big dramatic entrance. My browser just clicked off. I'm like, what?
Your browser clicks off, and we were promoting your puppy. I thought I kicked you off by mistake.
No, I don't. Hey, it's all good.
You would think us sci-fi guys have better technology, right? My microphone got cut off when you got cut off. So,
well, this is how I know. This is how I know I'm in the presence of awesomeness right now, because like all of these things. I was back when I started. Rob remembers back in the day when I used to do my show on internet radio, and I was the king of technical difficulties back then. There was always errors. It was ridiculous.
We would never hold that against you.
It's just one of those things that happens, and it's wild. And again, we got to be excited today because it is the Ides of March. So I just want to shout out one of my favorite movies. Well, actually, my favorite movie of all time, Free Enterprise. Free Enterprise. Oh my God. Listen, that movie, I have watched that movie with so many friends, so many girlfriends, so many people.
That was your first mistake
in my life. But no. You know why, Rob? Because every single girl that I've ever watched, every single woman I've ever watched Free Enterprise with loves the ornament scene. And you know what I'm talking about.
You know what? Yes, that and their wedding ring scene.
Oh my God!
But do you know that movie? It'll be 25 years ago in October. In October of this year, the movie will have been. It'll be 25 years since its world premiere in Spain.
We need a 4K release.
I know, we're working on that. Hopefully, maybe we can convince our executive producer who controls the film, he owns the rights, that he'll let us do it. I mean, I'd love to. It's interesting because a lot of people have never seen that movie, and it's pretty interesting. Like, if I released it again today, I might get canceled. There's a lot of questionable. I mean, there's a lot of jokes that the world has changed. It'd be pretty interesting. But now I can say, hey, man, it's a period piece.
It's a period piece.
Piece.
If you weren't there during that time, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. Would have no clue.
But a lot of the comedy that we grew up on just would not fly today.
Oh,
Blazing Saddles. Can you imagine?
Yeah, and they keep. It's very weird. Like I don't understand. I think our civilization has become slightly immature or dematured, because
Yeah.
we can't look at things in historical context and go, okay, that came out a long time ago and things were different then. And I think that we also don't have a sense of humor. We can no longer, and I think it's a function, if you really think about it, like we grew up as movie fans or fans of books or music or whatever you were a fan of. To be a fan of something was to look outward. It was to look out at something that you were a fan of. Your favorite musician, your favorite filmmakers. You had to look outside yourself. And it wasn't about you. And like when I watch movies, I never wanted to see myself in them. I watch movies to see Snake Plissken or James Bond or Superman or Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. I never expected to see myself, because if I wanted to see myself, I'd look in a fucking mirror, and what is really weird now is everybody wants to see themselves in things.
Yeah.
And I think that's odd. Like, I can understand if you're a certain ethnic group. Like, there was a great article I read today. I think it was on I don't know what it was on, but it was about a guy who an Asian kid who hated Ki Hu Kwan's portrayal of Short Round, because it was just another, when he was growing up in Colorado, he was one of the only Asian kids in his neighborhood or whatever, and he hated that kind. He had Long Duck Dong from 16 Candles, the donger needs food, and then you had No Time for Love, Dr. Jones, and I totally get that. I totally understand that. But now, like, everybody wants to see themselves represented, and I'm like, it's so weird. If you made a movie that represented everybody, who would watch it? Who would it be for? I mean, the whole point is that movies are supposed to be
an escape,
larger than life. And look, I get it. I mean, I understand. But what I also don't understand is I grew up watching movies from around the world. When someone says there's not enough Asian representation, I'm like, what? I grew up watching Kurosawa movies or Chinese martial arts films or Japanese science fiction, or now it's the last 25 years, Korean movies. So Parasite won Best Picture. Now we've got Indian movies like RRR, Bollywood films. The world is being represented.
RRR.
And it's just a question of, are you going to watch those movies? It's such an American phenomenon. Even our ability or our desire to be activists, it's so American. Let's show the world how activist we are by telling everybody we want representation. How about going and watching their movies? Well, how about getting a passport and going to their country and not complaining and immerse yourself in their culture rather than expect their culture to service you? I mean, we are such a weird, navel-gazing, narcissistic country. God bless us all. But I mean, it's like, it's so weird. We have a whole big, bad world out there, and the whole world is producing great movies. And it was pretty cool to see to see Everything Everywhere All at Once win. It was so cool to see a German film written by a British woman, All Quiet on the Western Front, win so many awards. I mean, it's pretty interesting to see the Oscars going as international as they did this year. And it's, when I say you want representation, go out there and find it. It's all there. Don't expect to sit at home in your house and get represented. You got to go out. James Kirk said, boldly go where no man has gone before. Picard said, boldly go where no one has gone before. And you use the word no one, that's all encompassing. You can't say that doesn't deal with your pronouns or whatever, where no one has gone before. Well, you should boldly go. Not you two, but I mean our audience. Boldly go.
Boldly go.
One of the things I noticed, Robert, is that today's generation, if you will, they don't understand satire at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. I mean,
they really don't, and
they're offended by it.
Yeah. It's very weird.
I mean, like Mel Brooks, for example. I mean, I mentioned Blazing Saddles. That would not fly. He would get canceled for like the kind of stuff he had in there, but it's just satire. Or All in the Family, to me, is one of the biggest examples.
Oh, can you imagine if that were on TV today?
They would be canceled.
I thought they were remaking that with an African American family.
Man, I don't know if that'd be interesting. I'd watch that. I mean, Tim's talk in the hey Tim, in the chat says Austin Powers would not work today. He's right.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't. It definitely wouldn't. And I want to shout out the Savage Bat for the 200-pound super chat asking the question, Burnett burned? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But Wayne Enterprises, I got to tell you, wow.
That's amazing. I can't keep up with that. That's a really expensive hot toy figure right there, buddy.
I don't even collect hot toys. Hot toys are outside of my budget.
Not tonight.
Yeah, after the show, Zod's gonna be ordering some stuff now.
Get that. You got to get that Nightmare 2-pack with the Ben Affleck Batman and black suited Superman.
Oh, there you go, Zod. And now you know what to buy.
That's only $500. Come on, dude. Only 200 more pounds to go. Come on now.
200 more pounds to go. Retro Nerd Girl says, I watched Revenge of the Nerds a few days back, and yikes. Yeah, that's a movie that definitely couldn't be made today.
No, but it's so you couldn't do. You know, it's really interesting. But even filmmakers like the kind of casual, what would you call it? I wouldn't call it maybe stereotypes or stereotypisms or something. Yeah. But I mean, there's a whole genre like the blaxploitation genre. Mm-hmm. You know, as a white kid from Seattle watching grungy New York blaxploitation movies, like watching Shaft or Superfly or Slaughter with Jim Brown. I mean, I used to love those movies. Those movies wouldn't fly today.
Yeah.
No, Dolomite, Rudy Ray Moore. Now we can watch a movie about Eddie Murphy playing Rudy Ray Moore, who played Dolomite in the movies, but you can't watch the actual movies.
No, you can't. Yeah, and Savage Bat also mentions coffee, which
I love coffee.
Which is
coffee's great. I mean,
another film that
perhaps the biggest afro in any movie. I love that movie. Coffee's the best, and I love like Pam Grier.
Oh, Pam Grier was just fantastic. I loved her too.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Can I talk about the Bajoran? Which Bajoran? You mean the Bajoran bucket that the changeling that was on board the Titan is in? That Bajoran? I don't know what you mean by that. Which Bajoran? I'm not sure.
Well, I think there's a lot that happened today. So
yeah, I was going to say, I was looking forward to come on the show. I was wondering what is there to talk about.
Well, I actually can start with. We could start with this.
little tidbit here.
Yeah.
April 28th, 29th, and 30th. Save the date.
I was just going to add that when I was in college, Bajoran was our code word for breasts.
Oh, bodacious Bajorans?
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
I knew a lot of Star Trek fans back in the day. So it was during a time of Deep Space Nine.
Well, I mean, the Odo, yes, or Odo is the Bajoran. Is that the the Bajoran that Worf was mentioning in the last episode? Of course, I mean that was absolutely Odo he was talking about.
Hold on a minute.
So, yeah. Oh, the Bajoran on the bridge? You mean the bridge crew? It's great. Wait to see tonight.
I'm loving the concept of the changelings being back. That to me is fantastic. Like to tie into Deep Space Nine, of all things, when there's all these things that they're doing. I mean, they're getting a lot of things right, Rob, and I'm not understanding how there's still backlash from a lot of old school Star Trek fans. I just don't get it. If you're a fan of Star Trek, there's a lot of clues. Terry really did a great job sprinkling in a lot of stuff that if you look real closely, you should be really excited as a Star Trek fan.
Oh,
I don't know.
I do. By the way, Efrain Guzman, my man, asks, what's my favorite rap song? You know what? It's funny. it's a different answer every time, but the first thing that popped into my head when I read that is Paid in Full. Eric B. and Rakim. Rakim is one of my favorite. I mean, his lyrical flow, man, is unlike no other. And that was the first thing that popped into my mind because, you know, I was a big fan of this Israeli, they called her the Israeli Madonna, but her name's Ofra Haza, and they sampled that. And I really liked that song at the time. It was, I don't know exactly, I want to say it came out 89, 90, 91, something. I have this newfangled contraption called the internet. I'm going to look it up right now. But I love Eric B. and Rakim. Rakim is, I mean,
Oprah Haza. They covered the Volume by Mars. They also sampled.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
And shit, with Iggy Pop. Remember that Iggy Pop?
Wow, the album was 87. God.
Wow.
87.
She died of AIDS, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it was like from a transfusion.
So that's where. Oh my God, that's so sad. I loved her. She was amazing.
Wow, is that 80? God, 87.
It was that long ago. Okay, yeah, because some of the volume was 88. So yeah.
But it was released as a, as a single.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was some great. Oh, I love that stuff. I mean, I'm an 8. The thing is, when I was listening, I have to say, I'm a huge. I love going back to Cali. I'm an 80s. I mean, I was listening because I was in college, high school, college, in the 80s, and that was when I listened to so much different music, and that the stuff that was coming out. The late 80s had some great stuff. Eric B. and Rakim.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. Yeah.
Like the Cure's album Disintegration came out, which is
best
incredible.
Best ever.
Incredible. Their tickets went on sale for their concert here in LA today at the Hollywood Bowl. And that I love that album so much. You know what else came out? The summer of 89, the first movie that I ever worked on, I was a PA on Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And the Beastie Boys' second album, Paul's Boutique, came out, which is still one of my favorite hip hop records.
Did you get it at Tower Records?
I'm sure I did buy it at Tower.
I just got done watching that Tower Records documentary.
Yeah, This Too Shall Pass.
Yeah, and
Tom Hanks' son made that.
It's a mind-blowing documentary.
It's an incredible. Really in Seattle, we had 3 Tower Records. And the Tower Records, Mercer Street, Tower Records in the University District, and Tower Records in Bellevue. And I mean, I went to Tower Records every week. I would go through the import vinyl, the import CDs, Laserdiscs. I mean, it was the greatest place ever.
Well, I lived in Sacramento in the 70s, so I used to go to the very first Tower Records.
Very first, it's in that.
Yeah.
You would love this documentary because they get into that.
Oh wow! What channels? What streamer is it on?
You can watch it on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Okay,
and you'll be able. And I mean, they dig into the weeds. I mean, they go into the beginning from the 60s and the 70s, all the way up to when they closed down, and they blame a lot of it on Napster and digital file sharing and all that, but ultimately, it comes out to being just a brilliant documentary about the actual topic.
I remember going to Tower Records in Sacramento and getting the 45 of Brothers Johnson's Strawberry Letter number 23. And I had this vivid memory of that. And all the disco 45s that were coming out. My sisters were all buying them, but we were going to that first Tower store, man. We were in that area. That's where we lived. And that's where I saw Star Wars opening day, Sacramento.
I was looking at the live chat. I mean, I wasn't even touching anything, and I just disappeared from the stream. Wow. And I was reading that somebody said, it's Steven Anderson. He's still up there. He says the one by the Space Needle always had live bands and signings. That was the Tower at Mercer Street.
Yeah, I've been there numerous
loved
times.
that. I bought my very first Laserdisc there.
Wow.
I bought Phantasm on Laserdisc.
I love that movie.
I didn't even have a Laserdisc player. And I bought
I had no idea you worked on Texas Chainsaw 3.
Yeah, that was the first movie. I have a screen credit in the end titles, Robert
Oh,
Burnett.
wow.
I was the art department production assistant. There was I had so many great memories because I've told this story before, but I could tell it now. But Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero Dawn of the Dead, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
And one of the actors in it, Ken Foray, who played Peter, the tall black SWAT officer, was in the movie. And so I was one of these people that, like, you're under the impression if it's your favorite movie, I just assumed that actors who were in my favorite movie or one of my favorite movies know that they're that cool. Like, that actors must get up and go, I was in fucking Dawn of the Dead, man. And, like, they must think that every day of their lives. And not only that, they must get up and they must just run lines with themselves from those movies. It doesn't matter that it came out a decade ago. That's what I was under the impression that's what actors did. And so I knew that when Ken Foray started working, there was going to be a moment where I was going to sit down with him. And I was going to be able to, like, tell him how much I love Dawn of the Dead, and he's going to regale me with stories about what it was like, and then we'd be able to run lines together. I'd throw quotes from the movie at him, he'd throw them right back at me. That's what I thought was going to happen. So one day, we're shooting at this farmhouse set behind Magic Mountain, and I'm eating at there was all picnic tables outdoors because it was in the middle of the summer, and he sits down right next to me. And I'm like, this is it, man. This is my moment to shine. And I turn to him and I try to be cool. You know, I'm like, Mr. Foray, my name is Robert Burnett. I work for the art department. And he turns to me and is like, hey, Robert, nicest guy in the world. How you doing? And I said, I'm a huge fan of the work you did with famous Pittsburgh director George A. Romero. Of course, Night Riders and Dawn of the Dead. And he goes, oh, thanks very much, man. It was great to work with him, and people love those movies. And I was like, what was it like making Dawn of the Dead? And he goes, it was really cold. And then he went back to eating his lunch. And
I remember this story. Oh,
yeah,
my
right?
God, yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, man. But, that was 10 years. It was a decade before. And more than that, because it had come out a decade before. And, actors, they finish their work and they're on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, and he was, by the way, he was so great, so gracious. And I told him this story later, like years later. I saw him at an event and he was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, you were great. It was great to watch you work. But he taught me an important lesson about Hollywood, which is an actor's experience of the work that they've done that we love. Their understanding of the movie they made is very different from a fan's understanding.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that because, when we talk about lore or mythology, like, oh, that wasn't canonical. The actors don't know what the fuck you're talking about. What do you mean canonical? What are you talking about, man? I do my lines, and they know nothing about the movies they're in the way we know.
Yeah,
they just don't, and it's not. That's just because they're acting. They're who they are. They're doing a job. They're playing a part. A lot of the time, the actors haven't even read the whole script. They're just they're reading the parts that they're in, and a lot of people, especially fans, don't understand that. And it was a lesson that I learned firsthand, and it was a good lesson to learn.
So
by the way, Chubby Teddy Monster Productions says, do you guys have a favorite? Cronenberg is one of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think his best movie is Dead Ringers, but I think my favorite. My favorite. I can only say I loved Shivers, aka They Came From Within, because that was the first Cronenberg movie I ever saw, and it was on it was the second feature when I went and saw Motel Hell in 1980, and it was right before Scanners came out.
Yeah.
And then I went back and what was really interesting was I'd seen They Came From Within, but I hadn't seen anything else he'd made. And when Scanners came out in downtown Seattle at a theater called the Coliseum that's no longer there, they had a Cronenberg. They showed his horror features. They showed They Came From Within, Rabid, and The Brood. And then they showed Scanners. He made another movie called Fast Company that's a car racing movie that was atypical. But I love all of his movies.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think The Dead Zone is an incredible Stephen King adaptation. Of course, Videodrome is great. But, I mean, I just pre-ordered the 4K of Naked Lunch from Arrow in the UK. I love Cronenberg.
My favorite is probably Rabid, Marilyn Chambers.
So good.
She was just incredible in that film for a porno star. Come on.
I think
Isn't that
my
crazy?
favorite. I think my favorite is Videodrome. I think
That would be a Zod movie, man. I just
because hey,
Yeah,
you
come
know
on.
me, Mikey. I think Videodrome.
If
Can you
you're gonna
imagine-
me guess your favorite, that'd be my choice. We Videodrome for you.
You know, I worked for a while for Pierre David, who was the producer of Videodrome back in the mid 90s. I was a script reader for him. And they were doing like Scanner Cop back then when I was working there. And I was like, you guys need to remake Videodrome. And what's so crazy is with the internet, Videodrome basically came true. I mean, I don't know if
you're
that's,
right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, it certainly did.
you know, it's totally there. And I think that they, you know, even if you wanted to remake Videodrome again, I mean, almost like Eli Roth kind of did it in Hostel, you know, instead of if you want to torture people to death or whatever, you can just do it. But and who knows if I'm sure that's going on somewhere, unfortunately in real life somewhere. But
And Graphic Vandalism says, "Long live the new flesh."
I love A Dead Zone. I think
Yes.
it's probably his most subdued film, but he reined himself in, but it fit the story that he was adapting. You know, Dead Ringers, which is plain brilliant. Jeremy Irons, right?
it's such a good movie.
Wow, just excellent film. Just great filmmaking all the way around. But Rabbit was just the whole atmosphere in that film is just very creepy. And that ending where they throw her in the garbage. you
Oh,
know?
I know. And also, what's crazy is that made me never want to have plastic surgery.
But the movie that disturbed me the most was the ending of The Brood. You know what I mean? That was just disgusting. And I think it was Fangoria had a poster of that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the go-to movie, and I think his most mainstream movie, even though I would say it's not necessarily mainstream, is The Fly. I mean, The Fly is so good.
Yeah.
But that's his most accessible movie, I think. And
You're right. Yeah, I forgot that's Cronenberg. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, what if he were to return to it and make a fly movie today?
Well, he was doing I think he did a fly opera at one point. He
That's
directed
weird.
a fly opera, if memory serves.
Well, now, have you seen his son's work? His son's a director now, right? I mean,
Yeah, his son's movie Infinity Pool just recently came out, and I think so. That was his third movie. His first movie is Antiviral. His second movie was Possessor, which I really, really like. But I think his movies are more. I think they've got really interesting philosophy behind them, but I don't think they quite work yet. They're really interesting ideas, but I don't think they hold together quite yet. But I still like them all. I mean, I'm waiting to get Infinity Pool in 4K. So
I wanted to ask you, was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, was that Leatherface?
yes.
Okay, I got a story behind this. Okay, so I was a wannabe film critic back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I sometimes I don't really look at how people look at what I'm renting, right? So I don't realize how eclectic I was. So the day I rented Leatherface, I rented Little Mermaid.
There's a double feature.
Double feature, right?
Yeah,
So
incredible.
I wasn't even thinking about it, right? Okay, I want to see Little Mermaid. Only Leatherface is here, and the guy at the warehouse was still open back then. Just gave me this weird look. He goes, "This is the weirdest double bill I've ever seen." He goes, "Man, you have weird taste."
That's amazing.
I saw them both the same night. You know,
It's eclectic, man. It's eclectic.
I didn't know you worked on that movie. Like Small World.
Davila, Rob Marshall directed Memoirs of the Geisha. It's the same director who's directing the modern Disney remake of Little Mermaid.
Of Little Mermaid.
She might be thinking
same
of Madame Butterfly.
Yeah, M. Butterfly is Cronenberg.
M. Butterfly was the one that's Cronenberg. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You get those mixed up. I was just talking to Necron, one of my friends, Necron, today about renting video like VHS movies when you were a kid, like really dangerous ones, right? It just made you feel like edgy. I miss that feeling, man. I miss that feeling.
There was so many movies that are so wrong.
Yeah.
That nowadays, like I think about movies like Blood-Sucking Freaks or I Spit on Your Grave. Or
we talked about that. That one.
Blood-Sucking Freaks, Ralphus. I mean those kids today. The kids today do not. They'll blow your mind if you go back and you rent that stuff. It blows.
I had to watch Blood-Sucking Freaks again. I'd seen it a long time ago, and I had to watch it again, Rob, because I heard you mentioned it on one of your shows, and I was like, I'm gonna have to revisit that movie, and it's crazy.
It's with the darts throwing the darts.
The darts. You had to mention that. That would not fly today. That would not fly today.
No. I mean, and it's funny because that's what we grew up with. The video nasties, movies like Basket Case, and again, there's another lurid New York movie.
Well, I mentioned Driller Killer. Do you remember that one?
Oh, I love that. Was directed by Abel Ferrara.
That's right. I forgot that. Miss 45, right? So,
yeah, I have that uncut.
Wow! Well, I didn't even know the uncut version of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta go see that.
And that's why, like, it's so funny when you think about, like, people love Kill Bill, but they don't know that Daryl Hannah's character was based on a Chubby Teddy Monster. I own Extro. I have a special box set of Extro.
Extro is awesome.
It's crazy. But like they call her One Eye, which was called Thriller or Cruel. I'll tell you something. So they call her One Eye, which is what Daryl Hannah's character is based on in Kill Bill.
Yeah.
I'd only ever seen the American version, and I didn't know that the original Swedish version has hardcore pornography in it. And it was this a long time ago.
Like the Emmanuel movies.
Yeah, but they're more softcore.
Right.
I had a date over, and she's like, oh yeah, she was like into exploitation cinema. I'm like, oh, have you ever? Okay. I just got the new original version of Thriller: A Cruel Picture. She goes, ooh, let's watch that. And I hadn't kissed this girl or anything, we were just getting to know each other, and suddenly I didn't know that there was hardcore porn in this movie where they hook her on heroin and abuse her horribly. And needless to say, that was the only time that she ever came over to my place. It didn't really work out. Well, nowadays nobody would care, but because
you were watching, you were watching what she wanted to watch. So
but you know what's funny? When people say exploitation cinema, there's like varying degrees of it.
Right.
And like if somebody today, I guess the equivalent would be to watch a Serbian film or something. Which
my god, that movie. I shout out to Johnny Alpha, aka Graphic Vandalism. That movie, okay, he had talked about it, and I watched it, and I'm like, oh my god, this movie is it's on another level.
That was the first. That was actually in my adult. I shouldn't say my adult life. In the last, 15 years, the only movie that I ever, in terms of levels of exploitation cinema as it's gone up a ladder, a Serbian film actually shocked me. Yeah. I thought I was beyond being shocked. I'm like, come on, how shocking can this movie be? And a Serbian movie came along and said, hold my beer.
When I was in the Philippines, almost every movie we rented was a bootleg, right? Usually they're in a theater, some guy in the theater, capturing a movie. Once in a while, we would get a VHS that was recorded from another VHS.
Yeah.
They would have what we called the post-credit scene back then, right? They would put porn in the back of these films. And so we had the Breakfast Club on. I was watching it for the millionth time. And me and my girl cousin were sitting there, and we forgot the video kept playing, right? They had the little static and everything. All of a sudden, we heard heavy breathing, right? It was graphic Swedish erotica. It was Swedish erotica porn. We just sat there like, what are we watching? You know, like I had never seen that before. I mean, there was
Oh.
blood. There was blood in this sex scene.
Yeah, so when I was one of the first people to have a VCR
Yeah.
in my neighborhood back in a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then when I started working at a video store, back then, even mainstream video, I worked at the second video store in the United States. It was a video store there was a video station here in LA, and then there was Video Space in Seattle. And Weston Nishimura, who owned Video Space, he started the Video Software Dealers Association of America, which ended up being a big lobby, and they would put on a big convention every year in Vegas. But so back then, 33% of the content of a video store was porn, and then the rest of it was mainstream movies, because the studios hadn't even released most of their catalog yet. When I started working, the only major studio that had released home video was Warner Brothers. And I remember the first day Universal put their first tapes out. And so I had made, because I started working there when I was 13, and it wasn't until I was like 15 that it was Deep Throat, The Devil and Miss Jones, and Behind the Green Door. Those are like the biggest porn, and I made one tape with all three of those movies on it. And it was because I ended up having I had at one point 4 VCRs daisy chain, and I was copying movies and everything. And that
you were doing
tape,
it right.
Oh yeah, I was a video pirate. I paid a theater manager and the projectionist. I'd film movies off the screen, and I was selling them for $150 a pop. One time when I was 16, my mom found like a wad of $10,000 in cash. She's like, "You're selling drugs," and I'm like, "No, Mom, I have 4 VCRs running all the time. What do you think I'm doing? I'm making bootleg videotape." And she's like, "Oh, that's okay." So, but where's all the money?
You could have seriously went to jail, but that was okay.
I know my mom thought it was so funny. She goes, "How much?" I go, "I sell them for $150 a pop." And we're talking, this was 83, 84. Like, if I could get new movies, like I had copies of E.T. or Fantasia or something, $150 a pop, and they were terrible looking. You could barely see them. But it was such a novelty, and my mother didn't understand. Like, back then, a blank videotape was $30.
Yeah.
So, a box of tapes would cost me $150 or something. And so it was expensive.
Robert, I may have seen your movies in the Philippines.
Oh, I'm telling you, you might have, man. It was so awesome. The thing about the 80s, I don't mean to be like, "Oh, in my day," but the thing about the 80s was it was music, it was movies, it was fashion. Like, if you were a movie fanatic, growing up in Seattle, you were also, even before grunge, music was a big deal.
Glamour and glimmer, fashion and fame.
Dude, it was the only thing I was missing as a kid in the 80s was cocaine. No one had coke in the 80s. We could get MDMA, we could get ecstasy because it was legal back then. But it was so much fun. Like, a movie would come out like Tony Scott's The Hunger, which came out in 83, where you had David Bowie and Susan Sarandon, and you had the beautiful Catherine Deneuve in it. Yeah. And Susan Sarandon had been in Rocky Horror. So a movie like The Hunger comes out, and it opens with Bauhaus, the
Bela
Beatles
Lugosi's
of goth, and they're singing Bela Lugosi's Dead, Daniel Ash, David J. And I remember seeing that film. That movie was a fucking revelation.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did after I saw the film, because I had heard, I want to say I had heard In a Flat Field, which was like, I think Bauhaus's first record.
I think it was their first single, wasn't it? It was one of their first.
But Bela Lugosi's Dead was only released. It wasn't on that record, so I'd never heard. I'd heard the song, but never in its. So I went and got. If you got Bela Lugosi's Dead, the first single, it's that long version. I'm like, this is the greatest. That and New Order's Blue Monday.
Oh God.
Were like those two 12 inches, because I was a big 12-inch fan, and I'm like, wow, this is the best thing ever. But nowadays, it's just different, man. I mean, you go into a Tower Records, and there was movies, there was music, CDs. I was always buying 12-inch remixes from England, buying things I'd never heard of before.
like
Sunny
Coast video.
Well,
great.
I discovered a lot of this music in the Philippines. There was a station called WXB 102 that was shut down by the government. Actually, um, what happened was after Marcos was ousted, and I was there when he was ousted.
Right.
The incoming Korea Aquino government they they acquired all the things he once owned. Right now, the station broadcasts from a house that was one of his cronies owned. So their transmitter was inside this house. So when the house was bought up, they lost their transmitter, right? And so they and so they were playing Bauhaus, Joy Division, all this like X Mile Deutschland, like really weird gothic stuff.
X-Mal Deutschland. Oh my God, they were on 4AD.
Yeah, yes, Incubus Succubus, right? So I have a story behind that too. But anyway, this station went off the air in '87. And so back in around 2007, when I was starting to make my own money, I brought it back with the original DJs. And it's still around. I mean, they're still broadcasting with the original DJs, like after all these years. They said it was impossible. Mikey, can you ever bring the station back? No, don't tell me it's impossible. I brought it back, but every single person back that was there. So it was cool. Like, this one of my surreal moments in my life where I could achieve something that's impossible. Like what's going on right now. But speaking of Expo Deutsch, like I tell you the story. So my cousin was celebrating her 16th birthday and at her house in the Philippines, and she invited all her Catholic gal pals with her, all the schoolmates, right? And we had a DJ there, and we thought, hey, these Catholic girls probably listen to top 40 music. That's what we thought. So they started playing Madonna and everything, and they would not dance, dude. Like, this is lame. We don't like this kind of music. So, like, he brought the 12-inch of Incubus Succubus, right? So, like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's put this on. Like, dude, the Catholic girls, man. You're saying about Satan. You're putting Incubus Succubus on. We put Incubus Succubus on, cranked it up. All those girls were dancing like crazy, like slam dancing in the parking lot. It was the weirdest thing, man. Just memories I'll never forget.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because nowadays, you had to go out and find that stuff.
Yeah, you did.
Like
yeah.
you had to make the trip. Like going to. I went to Seattle every week because there was. I'd have to get my comic books.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the time, indie record stores were also the comic book stores. Like there was one on 2nd Avenue in Seattle called Time Travelers that I would always go to.
Yeah. There's Fallout as well. I mean.
Yeah, and Time Travelers, and then I go to the U District to a place called Intervisions where I'd get my one sheets. The movie one sheets, movie posters, you would get them shrink wrapped on a piece of cardboard, and you do it at Intervisions, and I have to take them like three buses to take them back to my bedroom so I could, hang them. I wouldn't hang them. You couldn't frame them because they were too expensive. You get them all when you had it shrink wrapped. You could put it on the wall, and it looked cool. And on my ceiling. On my ceiling, I had movie. So when a movie poster is 47 inches by 27 of it's 41 by 27 by 41, and those are the standard movie posters for like 50 years, and they had white borders. Then they went down to 26 by 40, so they're 27 by 41. You'd have them shrink wrapped on a brown, just a piece of cardboard. But so it was all tight and shiny. And then what I would do is I would pound nails into my ceiling at a steep angle. And then you could take the poster, if this was the poster, and slide it in to the nail. And then it would bow out like this. So when you were looking up at the poster, it tightened it even further. So it looked really cool. So I would have like 9, or I could fit 3 or 4, and then 3 rows of 4 on my, and then the nails I would hang like model rockets or model spaceships below the posters, to the point where, I mean, my bedroom was a nerd palace, let me tell you.
Well, it's so cool that you're also into the whole music side of it, the comic book side of it, and the film side of it. Like,
well, it all kind of fit together, because I really miss that. Even like John Hughes, when John Hughes would put out 16 Candles or some kind of wonderful opens with a propaganda remix, and I was a big Frankie
Love
Goes to
them.
Hollywood fan, and they were on ZTT Records.
Yep.
And that was Trevor Horn, the great Trevor Horn, and
Yeah.
I was a fanatical Trevor Horn. Like, I loved ZTT. Their 12 inches
Yeah.
were insane, and I've got these CD collections of all their 12 inches now. But when some Kind of Wonderful, which is actually the better version of Pretty in Pink,
It was,
when
yeah.
I know, right? So Watts, the Mary Elizabeth, what's her name?
Masterson?
Yeah, Masterson. It starts with her character Watts playing that propaganda, but it's not the original version. It's the remix.
Yeah.
And I'm like off this EP, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like and I'm like, John Hughes was the man, because he put like on She's Having a Baby. He put Love and Rockets as Haunted When the Minutes Drag.
Yeah.
I mean, those soundtracks were awesome.
Oh,
And-
Hughes was brilliant. And,
Oh, yeah.
and, you know, just speaking of Hughes, I gotta ask, have you guys seen the latest release of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where they released a whole plethora of deleted
No, I haven't
material
seen that.
yeah.
from
Oh,
the
man.
movie? It's incredible, all the stuff that was cut from it.
I'm waiting for somebody to do multiple different edits of the film using all that
Yeah,
footage.
there's so much footage, and I'd watched a mini documentary on YouTube where somebody was claiming that there was an actual director's cut that existed that was significantly longer, but then John Hughes changed his mind and said that the theatrical cut is his director's cut because he has great editors.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
It just reminded me, Robert, too, of Propaganda, because Duel was one of the songs that we played for those Catholic girls. Song about
That's
the first guy won't hurt at all. I mean, you know, he's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
dancing.
and again, that's an incredible song. I mean, it's so fun. I love that you know these songs. Nobody remembers. You know,
Yeah.
there's so many. I mean, here's the funny thing. I'm not one to say music was better, but the thing is, you know, nowadays Taylor Swift will sell out a show.
Yeah.
But the same bands, whether it was Bauhaus or The Cure that I was
Yeah.
going to see in the 80s, are still, oh my God, 45 Grave. Yeah.
Oh, God. Man, you're taking it back now.
By the way, Sisters of Mercy
yeah.
is
Love them.
coming to LA.
Wow.
And,
wow.
and talk about Ofra Haza, the extended version of
Temple of Love?
Temple of Love, dude. Come on. One of my favorite 12 inches of all time. God, I love that
Like,
12-inch. Oh.
When I'm writing Dreamwalker, I have music all the time playing in the background. I've been playing Sisters of Mercy, Walk Away. I've been playing that a lot lately. Just a lot of the gothic rock. So it just gets me in the mood. Like Shriek Back Nemesis, you know, stuff like.
Dude, well, you know, I put a Shriekback song in Free
Yeah, you did.
Enterprise.
Yep.
And the Underwater Boys, I was when I heard that was Oil and Gold. Nemesis was off Oil and Gold. That was one of those. The first time I ever heard Shriekback was that 12-inch, the 12-inch of Nemesis, and I'm like, this is incredible. I'm like, what is this? You know, and I became a total. They're still recording.
Yeah, when you have,
I mean,
what bands can put the word truth in the song?
dude, I mean, they covered Casey and the Sunshine Band. I mean, it's.
Get down. Yeah.
I mean, I love, and you know, Michael Mann used Shriekback a lot.
Yeah.
He used Shriekback in Manhunter, and then it was in Band of the Hand. You know that Paul Michael
I
Glaser.
forgot about that from '86, right?
Yeah,
86,
Band of the
right, yeah.
Hand, and they used some like some of the Shriekback whatchamacallit, non-vocal, just music, instrumental tracks.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of that
Well,
word.
Michael Mann had Moby cover New Dawn Fades from Joy Division and Heat. That version just blew me away. I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah.
The version.
Zod's like, are we going to talk about Zack Snyder or what?
Hey, listen, this is a lot of fun talking about all this great stuff. I'm
Zack
just
Snyder directed. Actually, we can tie in with Zack Snyder. Actually, he directed Morrissey video. Directed Tomorrow.
Yes, there you go.
there you go. He directed He directed a lot of music videos. That was his
Yeah.
thing.
He wanted to do it. He wanted to do a Morrissey movie, but apparently Morrissey didn't want it to happen or something.
And then our boy, Chubby Teddy is asking about Night Flyers, which, is based on a George R. R. Martin story.
Yeah.
But what's his face is in it. Pamela DeBar, the great groupie. She was a great Michael DeBar.
Yeah.
Is in it, and so is Lisa Blount, who was in Dead and Buried, the Ronald Shusett written film. I love that movie, Dead and Buried. It's great, and she was also in Officer and a Gentleman.
Okay, I got a question for your great memory here. George R. R. Martin had this great novella where this guy, like some kind of sand
Kings.
That's a Sand King.
And they adapted it. They adapted Sand Kings
for the new Twilight Zone
for Outer Limits.
Outer Limits.
Outer Limits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the first episode of the Canadian Trilogy
Limits.
Entertainment, the
Yes.
Pendentium or whatever. Yeah, that
was actually a pretty good series, to be honest.
It was. There's a lot of always bodacious tatas too.
Well, the Bajorans, right?
Bajorans. Yes. We're all canceled. Demonetized.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. If you're talking about anything that is,
Davila Sinestra, by the way, what a great name, Mother Russia, Mother Russia.
You just say period.
Dominion, Peace and Mercy.
Oh yeah, that's Dominion. That's a different song. But is that off Floodland?
It's a Floodland, yeah.
Is that off Floodland?
My history teacher in college, he borrowed my Floodland album. He was cranking Dominion in his car, and driving by, like blasting it.
I love that song.
That's great music, man.
You guys think that Prometheus would have been way different if Damon Lindelof was not involved?
Yes, I do. As a matter of
100%.
fact, my friend Charlie de Lazarica, one of my favorite making of documentaries that I didn't work on, was he did. If you get the Prometheus special edition, the big box set on Blu-ray, his documentary, it's like 4.5 hours long, and you can actually see when Lindelof gets involved how it takes a turn. Did you see the trailer for his new series, his new TV series?
No.
So he's made a new TV series that's, I guess, set in the future, where I want to say it's called Mrs. Smith. The trailer just dropped for it, and it's about like a worldwide AI that controls everyone, and a nun that is defying this AI. And like the AI will call you up and say, "Please say the person next to you that I want to talk to them." And
sounds like that creepy replica AI that they have, that people are having like relationships with and stuff.
If I can get an AI to do what I want,
have you heard about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's like what the movie Her, Spike Jonze, Her, so good.
It's essentially based off of that concept, and then there was this big uproar about it because allegedly they took out the AI's ability to engage in erotic role play.
So what's the point of having an AI if you can't have them engage in erotic?
Yeah,
because real girls today don't want to have sex anymore, so you have to have.
So an AI is like, it's like, okay, well, now you just took away the main selling point of your app. So
I mean, that was another thing, man. Back in the 80s and all that, everything was erotic. It was all, and everybody wanted to get laid. The eroticism, all the fashion, the music.
Yeah.
It was all about that. Nowadays, the eroticism has been completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Like when you're in college, like what do people do? Do they sit around and light candles and talk about their feelings? I mean, what do you do? I don't know, man. I mean, I'm like, let's put on some goth music and fuck. Come on.
Let's put on some cramps,
Graphic Vandalism says, the AI stopped being sexy, so the simps got mad.
Well, back in the day, you didn't have to simp for women because they weren't monetizing everything sexual about themselves. It's like, I'm sorry, we can't do that. I get paid to do that. I mean, in my day, that was just prostitution. I'm all right. Nowadays, you can't say that because it's such a. We live in a really weird. By the way, I jest.
No, they don't care about context anymore, Robert.
Well, what's funny is it's but the music reflected that.
Yeah.
I think punk rock and there was a lot more nowadays, because the world to be born to live is dangerous. Mm-hmm. You never know and now there's this weird, I don't understand why everyone wants to feel comfortable all the time. I tweeted it out yesterday. I read this, I think I was talking about this essay that this woman talked about how she went to stay in Florence, Italy, and how she had a terrible time. I came from New York City, and I'm like, it was so weird to read this essay because, if you go to Florence, I'd be like, remember the movie Hannibal? You can go see everything, even though some of the great works of art are there. But to live is to live in a dangerous place. Yeah. And nowadays everybody wants the world to be safe, but back in the day, when you would go out at night or something, you just never knew what was going to happen. And I wasn't worried about crime or anything, but it was fun. We were having fun. And when you had to be present, like when you walked into a bar, you went someplace, you had to make eye contact with somebody. Yeah. And if you wanted to meet a woman, you had to be witty, man. You had to have you couldn't give her a line. You had to be cool, you had to be witty, you had to be funny, engaging, which means you had to learn skills before you even stepped into that arena, or you were not going to win. Ooh. And it was that combination of pop culture. It was the movies, the music, the fashion, all of that stuff, and you'd always have a tribe of like-minded people that you could find.
Yeah, now everything is like swipe left, swipe right.
Yeah. That is so not fun. I mean, when I first moved to LA in '88 to go to film school, Los Angeles was so much fun. It was because you never knew, like, you'd go out, and as long as your interests didn't interfere with anyone else's interests, we're all there to have a good time. Yeah. You never know where a night would take you. Mm-hmm. You might I could go to a bar in West LA and wind up at some celebrity's mansion in Malibu. You never know.
Now you're reminding me of movies that are about that, like Into the Night and Something Wild.
Yeah, exactly. And now you can't go anywhere because everyone has phones.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the stuff that I saw, I wouldn't let if I was a celebrity, I like to party, I wouldn't let anyone in my house. I'd make everybody put their phones in like hermetically sealed, magnetically locked bags. There's no way.
That's a great idea, Rob. I mean,
party
on.
I want to start a bar. One of my dreams is I want to start a bar called like Convo, and just call it Bar Convo or just Convo.
Convo.
To get in, there's somebody with a metal detector, and so when you go to movie screenings, like a Marvel movie, you have to put your phone in a pouch, like a magnetically sealed pouch. You don't take your phone in. No one. My bar is no phones. It's you. If you come into my bar, you can't have a phone. It's all about meeting people and talking.
Yeah. Because people don't really talk anymore.
Yeah. That'd be it.
Adega Outlaw wants to know, Rob, if you ever went to
the Okie Dog. Sure, man. The of course. You mean here in LA? There was, what street is? You know what? In Third, I want to say the one that was close to the Beverly Center. I find what street it's on. I think is it still there? Oh yeah, there's still one here. I want to see if it's the one that we would go to. Not that one. No, the one that's on Pico is still there, and many a night was spent going to the drive-thru at the Okie Dog, and Lucy's too. Still there.
Somebody mentioned Alien earlier. I just remembered something I want to talk to you guys about. So there was a film called Dark Star.
John Carpenter's first feature.
Yes.
And I didn't realize at the time I first saw it. Dan O'Bannon wrote that.
And he's in it.
college.
He
He's
plays
in it.
pinback.
Yeah, he gets attacked by the giant alien beach ball.
Yeah.
So that film basically became Alien. You know?
Yes.
He made it serious. It's pretty much the same story. And then, it became Alien.
And it's got the sentient bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the sentient bomb. And I love that Benson, Arizona song.
I know. Benson, Arizona is the best. Benson, Arizona.
And I was in Arizona when I saw it, so it had special meaning to me.
That was the very first video tape I owned that I bought was Halloween, and the second was Dark Star, and it was
John
on
Carpenter one.
Yeah, it was on VCI Home Entertainment.
It was, yeah.
And that was the second because Halloween was on Meta, and that was before it became Media Home Entertainment. And Meta was Charlie Band's wife's first name because he had Meta and Wizard Video, and on Media, a lot of early what would become Full Moon and Empire movies like The Day Time Ended and Laser Blast. All that stuff was on.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Holy crap. Yeah. And Dark Star got a G rating, and there's a scene where the guy's giving the finger to the camera. There's a centerfold in the back as well. One of the scenes, and like they got a G rating. It's hilarious,
And he made that was a movie he made at USC, and then it was bought by I want to say Fred Harris, and they gave him more money, and he expanded it into a feature.
Oh wow! So there is an original version of Dark Star then?
I've never seen it. I will say though that I want to say the last time it was released on Blu-ray, there's a really great documentary on the making of the film. Mm-hmm. And like Alan Dean Foster wrote a novelization of Dark Star.
What? I have no idea. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta look for that.
Yeah.
Man, I really never saw that.
Yeah, and wait, let's see, it's at Amazon. Let's see how much it costs. It's only $25.
Oh, I'll go get that.
And you know what's really interesting is this is like I think the new, or maybe it's not, but it's got the beach ball and the Dark Star and people are watching the show going, what are they talking about? Are we going to talk about James Gunn? What are we going to
do? James Gunn. Oh my God. Mikey, why don't you tell everybody how your day started today?
Yeah, Mikey, talk about your day today.
So, woke up this morning with a message from Darkseid, right? That went, so I was like, what is this? I mean, it freaked me out. Like, what does this mean, actually? You know what I mean? And I was still like groggy, and I'm like, and I texted Sil Abdul, my YouTube co-host. I said, "You know what this is?" And of course, my Facebook was just blowing up, and like, "Oh my God, Zach's back!" I'm like, "What? When is Zach's back?" It's basically it's Snyder Con, is what it is. He's doing their Snyder Con, and I mean, it's great marketing though. At using the whole Darkseid angle. I think Ray Porter doing the voice. As far as guerrilla marketing is concerned, that's genius. I thought,
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, it just goes to show you what kind of power that he has, where he's able to put out something that minute, and it makes the internet go crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm inspired, Zod, because the Good Austin's going to do a trailer for Dreamwalker 3, the comic book. After seeing this little video here, and I'm like, why not make something mysterious like this? You know what I mean? It's just so cool how it was done. So I saw that. Then an hour later, comicbookmovie.com actually put Dreamwalker on the front page, and I knew they interviewed an actress, not Kate Valdez, but there's this girl I modeled the vampire after, and I knew they were interviewing her. I had no idea it was on the front page of CBM. I'm like, oh my God. And it turns out CBM forgot I used to write for them.
Of course they did.
So when they found out, hold on a second.
And Sox Bulletin says the Mikey verse is getting bigger and bigger. Absolutely. Bigger and better. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Rob, did you have a great morning this morning?
I did. I mean, the news of James Gunn hadn't dropped, but I every Wednesday morning now is Mando morning, and because the Mandalorian episode 3 dropped,
Right.
and I have to say, I mean, might be blasphemous, but I don't like the Mandalorian very much. I mean, and this episode I'm watching, I thought, wow, I love the way it opened with Bo-Katan, and that whole opening scene was so rad. And then we're on Coruscant, and I'm like, wait, what? And we're with Dr. Cloney Man, and I'm like, wait, I was so into it when Bo-Katan's castle got blown up, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. And then suddenly we're in an episode of Andor that wasn't as good as Andor, and I'm like, wait, what? And then we cut back at the end of the episode. It's like, now we return to the Mandalorian, already in progress, and they land back, and they meet the armorer, and everyone is absolved of their sins, and I'm like, all right, let's go back and retake Mandalore, people. But I get it. The Empire's still out there. They're gaining power. Give me Thrawn. I mean, I get what they're going to do. Are they going to clone Palpatine? Whatever. But in terms of the lurching around between going from planet to planet to planet to planet to planet, and then going to Coruscant with a minor character that you've met once before, it's like it was. I have to say, I was perplexed by the writing, and all I can say is that when you watch Picard season 3, episode 5, which airs at midnight, you'll be like, all right, this is more like it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving Picard season 3. So I have no complaints.
Are you a Next Generation fan?
Absolutely.
You're going to freak the fuck out with this one episode tonight because there's the return of a character that I haven't seen anybody say anything about. It's like they don't know it. They don't know what's going to happen. And it ties in. Did I already say this last week? It ties into a season 7 episode. There's a dangling plot from season 7 of TNG that this goes just. It's really good.
Is there anything? And this is the only spoiler I will ask you about. Is there anything else that references the inner light in this?
Other than the flute,
the flute that we saw earlier in the
no, I don't think so.
Okay,
no, but there's stuff that references a lot of other things, like tonight. Okay. Tonight, there is an unresolved situation between Captain Picard and somebody else that you forgot. You might have forgotten all about. When you see it, when it happens, it's awesome. It's like, oh my God. Because Picard even says, what the hell are you doing here? It's really great.
Well, that's going to be great. So Mikey, you were telling us about Alicia.
Alicia M. Nava, who's we modeled the vampire Alice after. By the way, Robert, I found the digital files for Dreamwalker 1 and 2. I'm going to have Zod send them to you.
Oh, yeah, please.
And so anyway, I knew there's an article on her on the site, but I woke up this morning, she was on the front page. I'm like, wait, I didn't hear about front page. And apparently they discovered I used to write for them. All of a sudden, comic book movie contributors in the article, and they put it in the front. I'm like, wow, what a day. That and the little Snyder thing. I'm like, just those. Like, you've been at this business for long enough, all of a sudden you start catching the breaks, right?
Yep.
But you never got before, and you get them in a row,
That's just kind of the way the business works, man.
Yeah.
You just got to roll with it.
Yeah. And I think of you, Robert, because, you went through this. You went from being a fan to becoming a professional, and you're from here as well.
Well, it's a weird. I have to tell you, I'm kind of having an existential crisis in terms of, like Free Enterprise came out 25 years ago. I've only directed one movie, but what happened was I got sidetracked into the DVD world. So Free Enterprise came out in 1999, And after it won the AFI Film Festival, it won best new film and I got a best new writer award from the WGA. I went to all of these. I made a huge mistake. And the biggest mistake I made with my own career was I did not have another movie that I wanted to make ready to go. Or I didn't. People kept, what do you want to do next? Because I was making a company with some friends, and the next movie we made was The Specials that James Gunn wrote, and he was in. So we made that, and Craig Mazin directed, creator of The Last of Us, and then for reasons, a lot of crazy reasons, I ended up leaving the company. But for a year, I went on all these meetings, and I was meeting with people. The only thing I came close to directing was Dude, Where's My Car? And
you dodged a bullet.
well, but it would have been good for me because I would have worked within the studio system.
Yeah.
But I would go to these meetings, and I had because I was a film editor, I was working for NBC editing promos for the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney. And I was making a lot of money, a lot more money than I would have made directing another movie. So I would go to these meetings, and I was meeting with people that couldn't greenlight projects anyway. And I would come close, but the only movies I came close to directing were Dude, Where's My Car? And believe it or not, Freddie Got Fingered, that Tom Green ended up directing, that he wrote himself. And then I fell into the DVD world. And I started working as DVDs were exploding, and I got to work on Lord of the Rings, and I got to work on the X-Men, and I got to work on Superman Returns, and I made a feature documentary on the making of Tron. And I was a producer on Agent Cody Banks, which celebrated, by the way, its 20th anniversary. It came out 20 years ago yesterday. So it was really interesting, like because people have always said, oh, people like Free Enterprise, but no one saw it. It's a cult movie, so it didn't make any money. And when it came out, it was seen as this weird novelty because William Shatner hadn't had a Shatner-sance yet. But it was weird at the time when you start winning awards, and I went all over the world. I showed the movie at the Hawaii Film Festival, and Quentin Tarantino sat in front of me, and he corners me at a party. And for an hour, he couldn't stop talking to me. He was like, "Oh man, that was some funny shit, man. Shatner was great, man. Tell me all about it. How'd you do it?" And I sat there, and it was at a party at this giant treehouse on Oahu, a real treehouse. It was amazing, and it was incredible party. And there I was. I mean, Tarantino had made Jackie Brown. He'd made 3 movies, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Quentin Tarantino wants to know everything about." And I thought I'm going to have a huge career. So it all happens that way. And then it was nose to the grindstone. We got Cody Banks made, and that turned into a nightmare. So while I wish I was Stanley Kubrick or something, I've still had, when this stuff happens, Mikey, at the end of the day, it's a journey. Yeah. And you have to go with all of it. You can't, because you have to. Because what people don't understand, especially in this day and age, like Tango Shalom that I produced and edited, which we just sold to the UK, that movie, it was in Deadline. It made money when it opened. It played all over the world. It's the very first movie. It was one of the first films to play at the very first Islamic comedy film festival. And it's a movie about Jews, but there's there's an imam character. It plays in Rabat, Morocco, and it won the audience award.
Amazing.
And I at an Islamic film festival, a movie about a Jew, and I'm like, you know what? Our species, I've always believed in our future. Humanity is ultimately we're gonna be okay, despite the fact that we're insane, and we're gonna be okay. And one of the things about, like, people would say, okay, maybe, it's not everything everywhere all at once. But if I look back on my career, I've had a great time. Yeah. I once read that somebody said they wanted their life to end sliding into home plate with a martini in their hand. And I'm like, well, that pretty much sums up my life.
I tell people it's not the destination, it's the journey. Yeah. And that's something I discovered years ago, like, enjoy the adventure as it happens. You know what I mean? I don't even think about the outcome because I don't know what the outcome is going to be. Like I had no idea when I was writing this comic book it'd be a TV show. I had no idea the director who inspired the comic book is going to end up directing the show. Like, who thinks about these things? Just like
Well, Zod, I mean, let me ask you: 3 years ago, were you going to write a book?
No.
yeah, there you go.
That wasn't the plan. At least it wasn't going to be this particular topic. I mean, I've been struggling with a fictional book that I've been trying to get done for quite a while, but this particular topic just became like a passion project.
Yeah, but those are the projects that succeed.
Yeah.
And you've gone through your own long dark night of the soul with this now.
Yeah.
Wondering if people said don't quit, get it done.
Yeah.
Write it because the thing is you never know where it's going to take you.
Exactly.
You never know. You're going to write a book and the thing is I'm not saying that nowadays we can self-distribute, you can do anything you want, but the key is you have to put yourself, no one's going to sell it for you.
Exactly.
You have to do your own thing. And Mikey, I mean, you're out there reporting and you're out there slinging and you're doing all this stuff. You got to make it happen. And with this day and age, I mean, it used to be distribution was the hardest thing, but now you get a worldwide audience. All the Snyder Cut fans, a hashtag buy my book.
Yeah.
And suddenly
there you go.
But if you do it, you get it done. That's the thing, having the work. I mean, we've seen really great examples of that, like Young Ripa, Eric July. That guy made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because he made his own comic book and he did it right. He invested his own money. He printed it. He made the comic. It was all ready to go. And then he launched that campaign. And that's what the internet can get people.
I put about $15K in the first 2 issues of my own. There's nobody else, just me. Just as a passion project. I wasn't even thinking about profit or anything. I just wanted to get this work out. And it's funny because when I started writing Dreamwalker in late 2018, like 3 months after my stroke, I thought no one knows who I am. But I'm putting this book out anyway. Like I don't know how it's gonna get published. Will I have an audience for this? I just what? I'll just finish the book and see what happens. And then Spider-Gate happened. Tom Holland put me on the front page of Yahoo. All of a sudden, I'm known.
Yeah,
it's just crazy like that. But I saw Free Enterprise on cable around 2000 or so, and I had no idea what it was. It just
no one else does either.
Yeah, it's like Shatner. Okay, Shatner's in it. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. And one of the things that I was so attracted to that film is I always wanted to see a movie that combined geekdom, sci-fi kind of geekdom, with new wave and post-punk music, and you were the first person to put those worlds together. And
Well,
like whoever did this film was like, he's my kindred spirit. And I had no idea who you were, but I've never seen that before. I've never seen that combination before. Like, yeah, you had John Hughes using that kind of music, but his films were about teens.
Right.
Like, every movie had the whole sci-fi fandom with the cult and Drake back in the soundtrack.
Oh no, it was it was what was interesting about that was Free Enterprise is an imperfect movie, but I really wish that I could have had I haven't given up. I've got I've got a lot of other projects I still want to make. There's one movie I wanted to make that was kind of a spiritual sequel to Cameron Crowe's Singles, but it takes place in 1999. But I wanted to make it right after Free Enterprise. And people said, you can't do a movie about Seattle nostalgia 3 years after it was set. But I'm like, but now I can.
Yeah, you can.
And now it's like, okay. So, but it's I appreciate that. It was because that movie's full of a lot of the things that I liked, and it was so much fun to actually do. I just wish it was available. I mean, it's been out of print since 2006.
Wow,
so,
I had no idea.
And you're talking about your extended version of Free Enterprise, not the version that runs on cable TV and is on streaming. You're talking about the good version.
Yeah, I mean the version that I think is better. And I've recut the whole movie, and I've taken what's there and just tightened it up because it just is loose. The movie's loose. It should be zippier. Nobody would know. I mean, if you knew the movie backwards and forwards, you know. But if we get the movie back, I'm going to do a third version of the film, the definitive version, because there's footage in it like the Logan's Run dream sequence that I never was able to, for various production issues, I couldn't use it. And so it was a longer sequence that was more surreal that I would add. And then there was another conversation between Claire and Robert that was integral, I thought, to the film that isn't in the movie. So, because when I did the extended version, I couldn't find the Dailies videotapes. I had the footage, but we didn't have the money to retransfer the footage. So I'd love to find it and really do a definitive version.
Being that it's the Ides of March, how close are we, Rob? When are we going to get this 4K restoration?
Well, I mean, it really comes down to I think that if we could, I think that the guy who owns it, the man who paid for the movie, would sell us the film, but and we could do whatever we wanted with it. But we would need we'd probably need all in about $300,000 to buy the movie back, to have all the rights, and then do the entire, because you have to retransfer it and do all the work. And I'd want to do a whole new sound mix and everything.
Why hasn't the guy who owns the movie, farmed that out and done anything with it, like as a modern release? I think
that he's just kind of got tired of the business. People, and he went through a bad divorce, and he maybe he'll let it go, and people just don't care, and sometimes people don't. He knows that's what we want, and some people are just like that. They're like, look, as you get older, one of the things that I've discovered, people resent happy people.
Yeah,
they don't like.
You're right.
They don't like it because
it's definitely true.
Look, I've been having even though I've had a lot of shitty things happen in my life, I still think I'm having a good time.
Yeah,
I'm not sitting there going, oh, whoa, I'm older than I've ever been. I know there's people who are like, why are you on YouTube? Why don't you shut the fuck up? And I'm like, it's because it's to make money. I mean, I'm making a living. And the unfortunate thing is, I'm really proud of Tango Shalom, but it's still a low budget indie movie, and I can make more money talking on the internet than I can making independent movies. That's the sad part. I know, but that's the world. That's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately to get something. Look, I'm really proud. Like didn't just have Tango Shalom come out. We just sold it to the UK. But I worked on 3 seasons of the Netflix anime Dota Dragon's Blood.
Excellent too, by the way.
Yeah, isn't
awesome
that?
Stuff.
I mean, and Ashley Miller, who wrote X-Men and Thor, and his first feature was Agent Cody Banks, and I was one of the people that got him hired onto that. And so, and he got to write Cody Banks along with Zach Stentz, and I got to work on 3 seasons. Nobody even knows I edited 3 seasons of a Netflix animated series.
I didn't even know. It's new to me.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's funny because I don't walk around and go, have you seen the animated series on Netflix that I edited? It's so, because it's such a weird, it's so weird. And when you talk to fans, they come after you like, what have you ever done? And I'm like, well, I don't usually give my resume out, but I've done a few things. And
and like Savage Beth here says, release the Burnett cut.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good campaign right there.
I would love, what, if I had the money, I'd love to just buy the movie, because then I could make merchandise. What I really want is a 12-inch figure of Shatner, and in his velour tracksuit that he wraps in.
Like a Hot Toys.
Yeah.
We need ones of Mark and Rob, and we need rated we need rated R, and we need Claire.
Do you know where rated R is?
Yeah, you said he was
he's in San Luis Obispo.
Is he still in jail?
Yeah, he murdered his manager for embezzling his money.
Shit. Oh my god.
Yeah, and I've always thought about going up to visit him. I've never done it. I feel bad. I feel like I should, because he was great. He was so great to work with.
No tears for Caesar.
Especially not today. Today is it's on the West Coast. It's 11:34. It's the Ides of March.
Yeah.
You can still watch that music video.
Speaking of which, I have to skedaddle. I have to.
Well, I, on that note, Mikey, if
Yeah.
you've got to go, we might as well give people a preview of next week, because we will be back next week. So,
Yeah, of course we are.
So
I will discuss a story I never told before. A little story time. How I almost wrote for Hustler.
Ooh,
now that's
I actually got an offer by accident, and I'll tell you, as a freelance writer. Well, I'll tell you the whole story next week.
okay. Cool. And and Rob, what about you? We know that there's a
well, I don't have to leave right now, but
a hidden story somewhere.
well, in terms of Hustler, I'll tell you this. So in the mid '90s, when I first met Mark Altman, who I made Free Enterprise with, he and Chris Gore had started a magazine called Sci-Fi Universe, the magazine for fans with a life. Is what it was called.
I remember that magazine,
and it was published by Larry Flint.
Wow!
Oh my god!
And so their offices, the Sci-Fi Universe offices, the Flint Publications building is on the corner of La Cienega and Wilshire Boulevard. So, which is a big intersection in LA, and that's where our offices were. So our offices were in the Hustler building. And at the time, that's how we were able to put like the magazine Chic in Free Enterprise.
Yeah.
Because next door, Larry Flint published this kind of modern, like a punk porn mag called Rage, that like horror author Poppy Bright wrote for. Poppy Bright is transitioned, so Poppy Bright is. I hope Poppy Bright still goes by Poppy Bright. I don't want to. Dead name them. I'm not sure. But so it was a magazine, because I love Poppy Bright's work. I loved like Lost Souls and that kind of thing, and Exquisite Corpse. But so forgive me if I have.
My God, I haven't heard the name Poppy Bright in decades. I read Lost Souls.
Lost Souls was great, but
God.
Poppy Bright, if memory serves, transitioned. So
okay.
But I don't know if Poppy Bright changed. I guess it would be his name now. So I'm not sure. But so please don't cancel me. Because I was a huge fan. But Poppy Bright wrote for Rage. And so Rage was next door to us. So we had Sci-Fi Universe and porn mags. And then we would go to Larry Flint's Christmas parties. And the top 2 floors of the Hustler, his office floor was very Trump-esque in that it was a lot of gold, a lot of statues, a lot of pylons, a lot of very ostentatious decorations. But I'm not going to lie, it was pretty cool. And the thing about Hustler, Larry Flint Publications, they published a magazine called Tips and Tricks, which is a video game magazine. They publish all different kinds of magazines, not just Hustler and Chic and Rage and porn mags, but that was a whole publishing empire that people didn't know about him. Yeah. That he published all kinds of magazines, and so it was kind of a cool place to work. But the problem was then he would sell any non-pornographic magazine out from under the people making it. So one day, I was the critic at large for Sci-Fi Universe, and one day Larry Flint sold it to the Sci-Fi Channel, and our rival magazine took it over, and Mark didn't have a job, and I said, we should go make a movie. And that's how Free Enterprise was born.
Yeah, a little plot twist too is at the time that I got that offer, I was going through a born-again Christian phase. So I was trying to impress a girl. Right. So I'll tell you the whole story next week. The things that we do, right? When we were younger.
Wow, did I almost destroy my keyboard?
Oh my goodness.
Okay, you got to tell us her name. What was her name?
Her name was Holly.
Of course it was.
This Irish girl, right?
Was she a redhead?
No, she was a brunette, had short hair. Just trying to think, okay, I'm born again Christian, and It's like I literally did not watch anything racy for a couple of months. It drove me nuts. Like nothing. Like nothing would go against my Christian values and stuff. Like I was more celibate than Morrissey. Okay, that's
And there's your preview for next week. More celibate than Morrissey.
yeah.
Wow.
I got this offer from Hustler, and they said, "Yeah, I still have the business card. I should take a picture of it and have Zod show it on me."
I'll show it next week.
That is just fantastic.
1998. It lasted a few months, and it just there's no way it could have sustained that. But yeah, I tried.
But you got to give it a try, man.
But it did not work. It did not work at all.
So I would rather go. You should have switched it. You should have gone out with the girls that carried around Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, and
there you go.
and I represent love for those who deserve it, not love wasted on ingrates. I think that's the sixth or the eighth law of the Satanic Bible. Should have gone for those girls, man.
The irony of it all is that she ended up with an atheist. So. But I'll tell the whole story.
Yeah, I want to know. You should have gone. You got to go out for girls who want to make love to Pinhead from Hellraiser.
There you go. I learned from that point on. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'll see you guys next week.
All right, see you next week.
Thanks, Robert.
All right, man. This is fun.
Care. It is hilarious.
This is like a great show.
Yeah,
so wait, Zod, I gotta ask you though. I gotta know. What did you think of the James Gunn news?
Well, I was a little bit. It was. Let me just say, it was expected for me.
Me too.
Him direct it. I don't think he's. This movie is too important for his legacy for him not to direct it. I think he's got a lot riding on it, and he needs to knock it out of the park. And maybe for him, this is his free enterprise, or his Paws Not Stopped, or his Dreamwalker. This is like his big thing because he's got to make his mark. That's kind of what I looked at it.
But I mean, he's got Guardians 3 coming out, and I loved Guardians 1. I really loved Guardians 2 more than most people did. And I think his The Suicide Squad is a hilarious movie. I mean, Starro. The guy put Starro in a movie. I couldn't believe it. I was like, as an old school. The first comic I ever collected religiously was Justice League of America when I was a kid. And I'm like, Starro? I couldn't believe it. I had so much fun with that movie. And, I think people are like, and I think the artwork that he put on his tweet today when he talked about his father, because I work with James Gunn. I mean, it was a long time ago, but I work with him, and I always loved him. Working with him was amazing. I used to see him a lot out socially, go to a lot of events he was at before he had his great success, and he was always a really great guy. He had a dark sense of humor, and for people that really want to know something about James Gunn they might not know, I would suggest everyone seek out his novel, The Toy Collector. He wrote a novel. I want to say I have it right up there on the shelf, and he wrote it 20 years ago. It's a dark novel, but I'm a huge fan of his, and I don't think, despite the fact that he worked for Troma, I think if he makes Superman, it's going to be a classical Superman tale. I don't think he's going to make it because I think he wants to make a movie for the ages, a classic, a cinematic classic.
The thing I'm worried about, though, is the budget. We always talk about the money and who's going to pay for things and that kind of stuff. And I just think that, for him to make the kind of epic Superman movie that he needs to make in order for it to be a massive success and appeal to everybody, that budget's going to have to be on point, because you can't have a CW budget and make a Superman movie. It's going to, but I'll tell you something. I don't think here's the thing. I really believe that Superman,
all movies have become too expensive. And it's because I think that Hollywood, especially big budget, and this is easy for me to say, but I only say this because I have, as a documentarian, I've been on the sets of Chronicles of Narnia. I've been on the sets. I mean, the movie that most impressed me in terms of how to manage a budget was the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But the thing about that is it's atypical because Peter Jackson owned all of the production methodology. So if they're like, we need an insert shot of Gandalf rearing up on Shadowfax, they could go out in the parking lot and someone would throw up a green screen and they'll bring a horse out and put somebody in a Gandalf wig and they shoot what they need. So that wasn't the best example. But looking at movies, like being on the sets of movies like Superman Returns and X-Men 2 or being on Chronicles of Narnia, there is now a way to do things. There's a production methodology that requires 100 people to do everything on set. And now they have the volume stages are great, but the problem with the volume stages is they become very limiting in terms of you really, as a director and as producers, have to know the volume stages, again, using foreground elements, and there's different ways of production, but now there's this the creativity that comes with lower budgets. And I'll tell you, David Zaslav is going to give James Gunn however much money he needs to make this movie great. He did say that he's been working on the script for a year. But the thing about a great Superman movie is, I mean, I am a huge Man of Steel lover. I love Man of Steel. And I still maintain that the battle at the end of Man of Steel is the greatest superhero battle that's ever been committed to film between Zod and Superman, because it's horrifying and terrifying, and it shows just how destructive two Kryptonians would be if they were fighting in a metropolitan area. And I especially love the way Batman v Superman opens, when they replay that battle, but you see it from the perspective of Bruce Wayne. I thought that was genius. The way that Zack Snyder opened Batman v Superman, I'm like, this is exact. And it was supposed to be terrifying and scary. But like when you see the punches and the how fast that they would move flying through buildings, it was amazing. And that's why this criticism that people have always leveled at Man of Steel, like, well, what about all the civilians? I'm like, did you watch the movie? Superman has been Superman. He can barely fly. He doesn't even know how to fly. Like, how can he look out for, like, he's trying to stay alive because Zod could kill him. And I don't understand why it's not understood that the battle at the end of Man of Steel is an existential battle for planet Earth. Our newly minted Superman is fighting for 8 billion souls on Earth right now. And if he fails, we're all going to die. He already stopped the world engine. You know, he comes to Metropolis and we're seeing destruction on a scale we've never seen before. And it's supposed to be horrifying. And that's what Zack Snyder did. He said, if these people existed in our world, it wouldn't be Superman getting thrown into a Coca-Cola sign in New York like the Superman 2 had. As much as I loved Superman 2 when I was a kid, that's not exactly blowing a wind down Fifth Avenue or picking up a bus and throwing it at Superman. Is not what would happen if two Kryptonians bent on, or one of them bent on the other's destruction. It would be horrible and terrible and not something anybody would want to ever have happen. And I love that. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily have to have destruction on that scale to make a great Superman movie. And I keep going back to one of my favorite Superman graphic novels, A Superman for All Seasons, you know, which is what if somebody came to me and said, Rob, you only have $75 million and you have to make a Superman movie, I would adapt that graphic novel because it's so lyrical and poetic, and it would be more like the Shawshank Redemption of Superman movies. But it really depends on the story that you're telling with Superman, because you can still tell one of the original. When I saw Superman the movie in 1978, I was 11. And And I love the George Reeves Superman series from the 50s. I watched that growing up on TV, and I love whenever I could see them, the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons. I can't wait to get those on Blu-ray, by the way. And
those are going to be great.
Oh my God, some of the best animation ever done. And I remember seeing Superman the movie, and at the time, but people forget, a lot of that movie is one of my favorite scenes in any movie, is when Superman is being interviewed by Lois Lane on her apartment, at the roof of her apartment. Do you eat? Yes, I do, Lois, when I'm hungry. I mean, it's Superman being interviewed by Lois Lane on a rooftop. And it's a wonderful scene, and I know it's maybe not what people want today, but it certainly was great stuff. And even when Superman's confronting Lex so it really depends like how they're going to spend their money, because you don't have to spend $500 million. They can't with the amount of money studios are hemorrhaging. They've got to make what they need is a great script. And I'm hoping that James Gunn has a great script.
Well, that's the key here, right? We hope that he has a great script and that he's able to put that passion that he has seemingly for it into Superman. And like you said, to do like Superman for all seasons would be a wonderful story to see adapted on film. I still have my hardcover.
Isn't that the greatest thing
off
ever?
To the side, and it's a wonderful story.
I don't know.
Superman story.
I don't know if the audience would love it.
I know we would as Superman nerds, but the idea of James Gunn having the ability to do it is where I worry, because I would want him to put reverence and passion into it and do it correctly, and not make it, hokey or goofy, and I'm a little bit worried about his attachment to the Christopher Reeve era. I feel like that could pose a problem in the modern era where we are looking at, because I've always said this, Rob, if you're going to do a Superman movie and you're not going to continue with the Superman that they've already gotten to know for this generation, which is Henry Cavill, if you're not going to continue with that Superman, the next Superman, I always thought they should just go balls to the wall and make it a period piece.
Yeah,
have it take place in the Depression era when Superman was created, and do it.
And you know what? That would free them from a lot of things.
Yes.
I love that idea. I don't think that they would do it, but I would love to. Well, here, graphic vandalism brings up a good point. I went back and read, I've got the absolute versions of the first Authority comics, and reading them again, I can here's what I think how they're going to play it. I mean, and I don't know if this, since they're building a new universe, they're not just building Superman, but a whole new universe. I think we talked about it a little bit, but the universe would be that these like the creature commandos fought in World War II, but there's an amorality going on with these superheroes, and like the Authority is a perfect example. And the rise of Superman, the idea of there are already monsters, and what they need is gods to come back and restore order in a way. And I think I don't know if that's the way they're going, but the rise of Superman, because what newspaper, when Superman was created, writing for a newspaper like the Daily Planet, aka the New York Times was the end-all be-all. It had more integrity than, whether it did or not in real life, but it did at the time amongst the population. The New York Times, and writing for a newspaper was a very revered profession. And so the idea that that Clark Kent would become a writer for a great metropolitan newspaper was a big deal. But so now our world is changed. So what's he going to do, write for BuzzFeed? You know, and even the New York Times has lost its luster as the paper of choice.
It would almost have to be like he'd almost have to become like a vlogger, or dare I say, like a YouTuber.
And then why would he go to New York?
He could do it from his house in his underwear. It's not that.
Well, I mean, you know, it's you think about people like guys like Tim Pool, who, you know, started out, he's a skateboarder, then he started going to like areas where bad shit was happening, and he started reporting on it. And now he's a big deal on YouTube, but he's been around for a long time. But that's how he started. And it'll be, well, Savage Bad, I would say Snyder's Superman would crush Gunn's Z-list superheroes. I would say, remember, I do think that there is a method behind what they've come up with. This was not something that they just threw together. And having like Swamp Thing, having the Authority, which is interesting because the Authority wasn't even, it was a Wildstorm. They brought that into DC. It wasn't even a...
How do you think the Authority is going to work? That's a question that I've been wondering, because nothing against the Authority. And Authority is a cool concept. It's a cool comic. But in terms of introducing it in your first phase, so to speak, of your new DC, I mean, how does that really make sense when you don't really have your universe?
Look, the Authority, before the Boys existed, the Authority was sort of a pushback.
And that's why I think it. That's why I think it. Where I think it came from. Why they're doing this? Because
I agree.
Success of the Boys, but I'm just talking about the timing. Like,
the thing is, Apollo and Midnighter are Superman and Batman.
Yeah,
it's just that in the Authority universe, they didn't exist. So you're seeing these two gay characters, you know, they're analogous to Batman and Superman. So it is an odd choice. And the only thing that, you know, the theory that I've talked to with a lot of people is that they're going to do a variation on Kingdom Come. And in Kingdom Come, you've got all of these amoral superhero characters that our gods, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, Supergirl, have to come and bring order back to the universe.
Yeah, and Retro Nerd Girl, I echo your sentiments here. She says, my biggest concern is making Superman a joke for the other characters.
I agree.
My hope is that he is treated with respect. And yeah, that's my biggest concern as well. I don't think and the only reason why I have so much trepidation is because it's James Gunn, and we know what kind of material James Gunn is famous for. We know his sense of humor. We know what his film sensibilities are like. We know what to expect. Like Rob, when I look at you and I look at my favorite movie of all time, Free Enterprise, I love that movie. If you were to tell me tomorrow that you were directing a Star Trek film, I wouldn't have any trepidation whatsoever, because I know you and I know your love for the material and I know what you would bring. That's why I was, not to bring this up, but I mean, my God, when you were attached to direct Star Trek Axanar, I was literally like, I was biting my nails. I was so excited. It was
dude.
Just like,
so was I. I mean, I
fantastic.
And I can't tell. That's why it's so weird to see how far south it went. I mean, we got we shot the Vulcan scene as a proof of concept. We did that in a parking lot in an afternoon.
Yeah, Gary Graham, phenomenal actor.
Yeah, I mean, it was great, and I wanted to show people. I'm like, look, man, we did that, and it looks better than Star Trek Enterprise did, and that was done with a 20-foot by 20-foot green screen, and we were going to reshoot that anyway. We had a much bigger, huge green screen that we built. It's a real shame, and I can't believe that the guy that I was working for, that I did all the work for, has sued me twice. It's like, dude, and the things he said about me is just honestly quite horrifying and really unfair. But 8 years have gone by.
But I remember, your enthusiasm for the project, and for me, being a lifelong Star Trek fan like yourself, and knowing you for as long as I have, there was no, for me, it was just like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. This is going to be Star Trek.
I thought so too.
But like with James Gunn, I'm worried because you're talking about a guy who's directed some good movies or and then some okay movies and then some not so great movies, and none of the movies that he's done to me scream Superman. None of the movies he's done say to me, this is the guy that I would pick to direct an epic reboot of Superman. I have a hard time with it.
I totally understand, and I don't think you're wrong, but I would say this. I don't think that there's ever been anybody in a position in Hollywood who has more to lose than James Gunn does with this movie, because everything that they were hired to do rests on this movie being not just good, not just great, but one for the ages. This can't just be an okay Superman.
It's going to have to be a classic. It's going to have to be perfect.
It's going to have to be a classic, and it's going to have to be perfect. And one, I think James Gunn knows this. And I think that it's very funny because I see a lot of people going, oh, when he was hired, it was understood he was going to direct movies. And while they probably couldn't say it, and I'll bet James Gunn himself was saying, I'll write this script, but I'm not going to say I'm directing it. And the reason that I'm excited for it is knowing him a little bit. I would say that I do believe that James Gunn has it in him to do this film, because his entire future and the future of a whole studio is resting on the success of this film.
And that's the problem that I have with it as well. It was like he was the kind of director that was content in doing the types of films he was doing.
Yeah.
So when he does, for example, when he does Guardians of the Galaxy, he's in his wheelhouse. That's his thing. When he did the Suicide Squad movie, that was his thing. That was something that he, so to me, I feel like and then I go back to, I cite, interviews with him that were done not too long ago. I think early last year, he had some interviews where he literally said that he had no desire to tackle a character like Superman or a character like Batman, that he's more comfortable with the smaller characters that he has more control over. He has creative freedom to do with as he will. It's sort of like you're giving this guy the chance to do. So now I feel like he's kind of been backed into a corner because he has all of this pressure. And if I was him, maybe this would have been something he would have did. Like if I was him, maybe that's something I would have done, wrote and directed the Superman movie, but I would not have taken the job as head of DC at that point. Because to me, it's like, how much can one person, like you said, about his career and everything hinging on him as a creative, basically his whole livelihood is riding on this Superman.
Yes.
So that's a lot to put on a person. And he's not someone when I think about it, he's not really someone who needed to be put in that position. They could have got him to direct Superman or to make Superman without putting him in a position of authority over the entire of DC. That's the thing that confuses me. So,
well, I think, Peter Sutton,
Peter Safran.
I keep saying Sutton because I used to work for a guy named Sutton, but Peter Safran is a guy that, he ran James Wan's Conjuring verse.
Yeah.
But he's also worked with James Gunn for 25 years. So I think the team of them, it's going to be interesting in that Peter Safran and James Gunn, Safran knows how to manage money.
So that's what I was going to say. Isn't Safran the money guy? And
yeah,
James
he's
Gunn
a
is
producer.
creative.
Look, he produced Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which all the notice is everyone's talking about how they loved it. I haven't yet heard anybody that say they didn't like it. I'm hoping it's good because it's getting no buzz. I hope it makes money. But you know, it's going to be interesting to see. You know, people are talking about that the plan is to just sell off Warner Brothers, or it's all very weird. All the mergers, the acquisitions. I mean, Warner Brothers has been hit hard between the AT&T merger that didn't really work out very well, and then being picked up by Discovery. And it's too bad because it's one of our great studios with such a rich legacy, and our entertainment legacy, 20th Century Fox being taken over by, now it's just 20th Century Fox. It's now 20th Century Studios, which is what it was called before it was 20th Century Fox. So it's reverted. But like, what's Disney doing with that? And it's
Isn't
tough,
Disney
man.
getting back into the? I had seen something, I think yesterday, that Disney's getting back into the physical media.
Yeah, but the problem
realm.
is they say that, but you know, if that means anything, they have all these old masters. If they're getting back into physical media, they need to go back into their catalog. They need to go back into Fox's catalog.
Fox's catalog.
I mean, where's
yes.
my 4K of all these Fox titles? Whether it's Patton, whether it's
the original Star Wars trilogy?
Well, yeah, where I don't know if we'll ever get that
unaltered, untinkered.
Yeah, I mean, we've got you know, versions of
we've got great fan versions of those that are just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
4K 77, just saying. I mean,
man, so much good stuff. It's a very weird time, and I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, we live in a time where people are looking at, if you have 2 hours of time, and I'm guilty of this too, I'll watch YouTube videos, or I'll watch, you know, I'll stream through. I don't watch TikTok. I mean, I don't, and it's not that it's just, it really is a Chinese surveillance device where they're just gathering our information. But reels, TikTok reels are always fun. And you can scroll through reels, whether they're on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and or YouTube, and be just as entertained over a 2 hour period of time as an independent movie I spent 5 years of my life working on. And that's where we're at now. And unfortunately, younger people, I've often said that cinema was the great art form of the 21st century. And now I think gaming is the great art form of the 21st century. And we've just started to scratch the surface. I mean, virtual technology, what gaming does is what social media has done. It's put everyone at the center of their own reality show or their own experience. I mean, you know, everyone's become a raging, navel-gazing narcissist, and that's fine because I'm one of them too. I'm out here talking on YouTube.
And then there's, you know, and then there's virtual reality, which is going to at some point become indistinguishable from the real world, and that's game over.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all. That's what I've often said, that the currency of the 21st century, the great currency, is going to be authenticity. Because we live in a counterfeit world. Bank collapses. Everyone is trying to cheat the system. Everybody's trying to, and eventually the system, you know, I believe in capitalism, but capitalism only works because capitalism inspires people to aspire to do things. Whereas collectivism, Marxism, and socialism does not. And that's what people don't understand. We now live in a world where our youth wants to be collectivists, Marxists. I maintain because they're lazy. Because living in a capitalist system is tough. But the problem is the real capitalists are robbing and stealing. And they're cheating the system. And capitalism can only really work if you don't cheat. But greed, which is what capitalism inspires, so it's tough. We're deeply flawed human beings. And if there's a way to cheat the system and get rich, we'll do it. But the thing about Marxism and socialism is, it makes one side, as we've seen, it's happening now on YouTube. If you're part of a group and somebody offends you or they don't think the way you want, what do? You get your group to go after them, to silence them. And it's one thing to silence people online, but when you hate people in college campuses, you can't speak here. We'll shoot you. We'll speak you down. I mean, since when did bad ideas should be brought to the fore and let them be exposed? But if your beliefs will not stand up to scrutiny, if you tell me that words are violence and you can't bear to hear something you disagree with, then fuck you. Yeah. Get off the world stage because you're the problem.
Exactly.
And all these activist thinkers and all these people, these fragile intellectual midgets that can't handle hearing words that they don't like, they're the problem. We need to toughen up, man. We need to deal with the
I believe you, man, because this is the thing. We grew up with, the old saying, sticks and stones, right?
Yeah, I don't think
that doesn't even
sticks and
exist.
Stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me.
Right.
Lieutenant Uhura in the 3rd season of Star Trek told Abraham Lincoln, who called her a certain word on the bridge of the Enterprise, not the N-word, a derivation of that. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And Lieutenant Uhura told him, "Oh, in the 23rd century, we've learned not to fear words." This was on a Star Trek episode in 1969.
Exactly.
And nowadays it's like, words are violence. I'm like, you don't even know what violence is. If you want to know what violence is, before you tell me words are violence, why don't you come over here? I mean, I was mugged when I was in Sydney working on Superman Returns. I had my nose broken. I got 3 cracked ribs by 4 dudes who jumped me and beat the shit out of me. But I held my own, just so you know. That's violence. When somebody says words are violence, no, it's not. It's not. And if you're telling me that words are violence, I mean, you're out of your mind. You don't know what it's like to be physically beaten to the ground or curbed. You ever watch American History X? I mean, and I feel like reinstate the draft. Draft everybody at 18 years old. Do what Israel does. Put them into social service for 2 years. I mean, we live in a world where people talk about privilege. If you're born in the United States, if you're born in the West, you are privileged. All of us, no matter what your sexuality is, your color, whatever, you're privileged because other places in the world barely have one thing to eat, much less have internet connections or cell phones or clothing. We're all, and we in America we're looking very silly to the rest of the world. What we need to do is toughen up. We need to start creating and building a future, learning as much as we can, learning about ideas that we might not like. That's how you combat those ideas. This idea that everybody should feel good about their lives, we got to get over that because we're going to get destroyed by the rest of the world. So,
because they're looking at that and seeing what America is, preoccupied with. All of these things that really, don't mean anything to the rest of the world. If you try to put it into context, I mean, it really doesn't. So,
we are weak.
Yeah,
we are weak as a nation, and we are weak as a people, and we can't even decide in America. It's funny. All the lessons in life you need to know are in The Godfather. They really are. Because The Godfather is about a king and his 3 sons, as Coppola would say. It's about a realm. And how do you rule over a realm? Well, you have to listen to the lessons. One of those lessons is never tell anybody outside what the family what you are thinking. Which means don't go online and bitch and moan and complain about your problems, because that just tells the world how weak you are. And you, in you telling everybody else how weak you are, you weaken all of us together. We need serious people to solve serious problems, and that's that authenticity. If people are gonna just stop demanding, like, I feel this way, you have to. I demand you call me how I want to be called. I'm like, bro. Should I not say bro? I don't even know what to say. I'll just say yo instead of bro.
I'll say yo
I'll say yo. Yo is non-denominational. It's gender fluid, whatever. Yo, shut the fuck up and let's do some work. It's like, I feel like the idea is everybody needs to join some project and go make something. This is why I love Hollywood. Do you know what one of the most inspiring things you'll ever see is? And people laugh when I say this. Oh, Hollywood's full of, pedos that want to drink adrenochrome, whatever the fuck they say. I don't know. The great thing about Hollywood is when you're working on a big budget Hollywood movie, the people that are working on that movie are the best of the best. They've worked their way through the business. They are every shape, size, color, creed, sexuality, religious background. And I'm talking about an actual movie set where people go to work every day for 12 hours. They shoot a movie. It is the most diverse, most accomplished. It is, and that's why when people rip on Hollywood, I'm like, you've never been on a movie set. Because these people working on a movie set, every single second has a dollar value associated with it. Say you're making a $200 million movie, right? Let's say that $200 million movie is going to shoot for 100 days. Well, you have 5 days a week and you shoot for 12 hours a day. You can back in and let's say your budget to shoots, I don't know, make it easy. You're shooting for 100 days, you have $100 million to shoot. You can actually calculate on a 12-hour day how much every second costs. And every second might cost $20. Might cost $5, might cost $10, I don't know. But imagine if you're working on a job and you have to accomplish a set goal. And on a movie, we're going to shoot these scenes. Say it's 4 pages today. We have to shoot 4 pages today in this set. And we are only on the set for 1 day. So you have to get those pages done. Every second, $5, $10, $15, $20. Do you think that anyone puts up with shenanigans on a set like that? You have people that work with military precision to get their jobs done. That's what a movie set does. They're the most accomplished people in the world to finish a task. Because anyone who F's up, they're out. Because there's too much money at stake. And so I really wish that our civilization worked the way a movie set does. With a great line producer, a great first AD, a director with a vision, and all that crew. Everybody from the PA to the makeup and hair people to Crafty who feeds everybody to the catering team, costumes, hair, grip and electric. These are the best in the world, man. And that's how things should run. And no one complains about how they feel. Oh, so-and-so said something. I was offended.
They don't have time to be offended.
It's like, get the fuck out. And by the way, you hear, there's a lot of people in Hollywood. The HR departments are getting more calls than ever. Because when you have that level of pressure, the way you let off steam is when you have darkly sardonic senses of humor. People might make dirty jokes. They might make jokes that are a little off color or body. But it's understood with the level of pressure we're working at, that's how you let off steam. And everybody understands that. And it means that everybody is a target. Everyone, you can make jokes. We've stopped learning how to laugh at ourselves. And that's how it needs to be. Everyone's gotten too precious about their own belly buttons because they're all looking down. Look at me. It's like, no, man. We live in and here's the thing. The world we live in is great. All of these crazy, wonderful people, awesome. I love everybody. People are great. And I love when people are who they are. Wave your freak flag high. I don't care. Give it to me. Give me all of your craziness. But as long as your craziness is putting you on a path to get somewhere, whether you want to become an activist and help other people, whether you want to go build a bridge somewhere, whether you want to create a computer program that doesn't exist or a movie or write a book, you want to make something, I will go help you. What can we go make? What can we dream up that hasn't existed? Nowadays, people are so like, no one is a victim if they choose to take their life and go make of it what they want.
That's true.
It's up to you. No one, by the way, with the internet, with all the technology we have, no one, that's the funny thing about Hollywood. No one's stopping anybody from making a movie. The reason why people don't make movies is because it's fucking hard. And you need a team of people to do it. And everyone's like, oh, Hollywood's keeping me out. No one's keeping you out. You want to make a movie? Go make one. Anybody can make a movie. And if you become rich, or if your movie's great, they will come and exploit you.
That's very true.
I mean, it's like, no one, I listen to people, they talk about, I'm like, no one is stopping you from making a movie. There is no ceiling in Hollywood. Well, women, this, I'm like, no, go make a movie. You know, when Spike Lee made She's Gotta Have It, which, by the way, when I first saw it, I was blown away by. He made a movie on his own terms. I'd never seen anything like that. I talk about this movie all the time. A movie about a black woman who was dating multiple dudes in Brooklyn in the 80s. It was way out of my experience. But when I saw it, I'm like, I love this movie. It was low budget, black and white, awesome. I didn't know who Spike Lee was. No one stopped him. You know, I mean, and he's had to deal with all kinds of bullshit in his career, but he's made a lot of different movies, done a lot of different things. And the thing is now, with YouTube, you can make whatever you want. The problem is, it's really hard to make stuff.
Yeah.
You know, how hard has it been for you to write a book?
To be a content creator of any kind is difficult. It's just been an exhaustive amount of research, but in the end, it's going to be worth it. That's how I feel. And I look at all this great stuff. You know, it's like one of the greatest things about doing this now with you and Mikey Sutton is it's like you guys are an inspiration to me. You guys are doing so much and have done so many great things. And I'm over here writing this book and thinking, man, if it's not a struggle, then it's not worth it. You've always got to have some kind of a struggle. It's not going to come easy.
But what's interesting is if we didn't have the internet, I wouldn't know you.
Yeah.
You and I have streamed together for years.
Exactly.
You know, and I think we have a friendship. You know, if I was ever in the same city as you, I could call you up and be like, hey man, let me buy you dinner. And we'd probably turn the lights off at wherever place we wound up at. You know, I mean,
absolutely.
And that this is what the modern age has brought us. It's brought us people that we wouldn't have met otherwise. I can sit here and stream with you. When I first met you, you weren't writing a book.
No.
Now you're writing a book, and you're going to finish that book, and I can read it, and you can sell it, and you have a community of people that'll buy it.
Yep.
And then you put it up on Amazon. How cool is that? You know, and you conjure that out of nothingness. And that's what the modern age, that's what all this technology has given us. It's given people that are serious-minded, that want to, rather than sit and bitch and moan and complain, they can use this technology and they can make whatever they want. And it's a platform to put it out. You can distribute it.
Yeah.
We didn't have that 10 years ago.
No, we didn't. Everything is that's why it always amazes me that when you tell stories about free enterprise, because back then it was probably harder than it would be now.
Oh, it was, well, first of all, it was just insane. I was working on the Star Trek Experience.
Yeah.
You know, and I was pissed off about Rick Berman he thought my beautiful, I wish I still had it, I don't have it, but my beautiful montage of the original series, he's like, well, this is too much original series. I'm like, it's one video. And Free Enterprise was born out of that. The Nightwick says, you're still crazy. I'm still stumbling making content for YouTube. It's not the same as making a movie. No, it actually, in a way, the skills that you learn making content for YouTube are the very basis of making films. I mean, whatever you're doing, you got a camera, you're talking, you have dialogue, you have lighting. I mean, I've always hated the lighting. I'm rebranding my channel. I'm gonna have this whole place. Everyone's got on YouTube has colored gels now. Wait, I'm gonna color the fuck out of this place. It's gonna be great. But it is kind of the very basis, and to do consistent YouTube streaming is that shows that you have a work ethic, and being able, like, right, I'm talking to you into this little tiny green light that I see. It gets lonely in here. You know, I look around, I've got all this cool shit in here. It's just cool, but I'm all by myself.
That's what I say. You know, I joke around all the time saying, God, everybody that you really know now, you see them online. You're online with them. You're online with them more than you would be in your everyday life.
I know.
But at the end of the but ultimately, that's just a testament to where we are technology wise. I mean,
yeah. Did that girl? Was it? What's her name? Was it Davila Sinestra? Did she disappear?
Yeah, she had to go.
Oh, okay.
So I thanked her for coming. I think she'll show up to all our future shows.
Yeah, I don't know her or anything.
She's pretty fun.
Yeah, I know nothing about her. I just thought it said she was banned, and I'm like, how'd she get banned from
it? Was accidental. I was actually trying to highlight on StreamYard one of her comments, right. and I ended up putting her on timeout for 5 minutes. It blocked her for 5 minutes, and I didn't mean to do that.
I've done that before,
but it just happens. And Savage Bat says, on behalf of the criminal world, no way we would kill Rob. He'd be the one that got away.
Well, that's because I'd keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
The criminal world. I mean, and by the way, you know what? The criminal world's kind of the same way. You got to do your job. A lot of money's involved. You do your job well, you do what you say you're going to do, and you stay. Well, you can be an honest criminal.
Ray Liotta didn't let bears stop him from getting his job done in Cocaine Bear, did he?
No, he didn't.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. When we were talking about the 80s, nothing will stop you. There's too much at stake.
I mean, that's another thing. Criminals, man. Oh, speaking of criminals, on Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 5, which is now airing, there's a really interesting criminal. A criminal we've never met before. A kind of criminal. And you go, wait, what? And then when you hear the reason why this person says they're a criminal, you're like, that makes sense. They add something canonical to the Star Trek universe about a certain kind of criminal. And you would not have thought this kind of person would be a criminal. But when you find out why they say they are, you're like, oh, okay.
Okay. Terry Metalis is really knocking it out of the park. I have to admit, I'm not even, for me, it was like, you totally see the difference from somebody who cares about Star Trek versus those who were just using Star Trek as toilet paper for previous seasons. I honestly, I mean, he's definitely a fan. He's definitely one of us, Rob.
Oh, wait do you see today? Yeah, it's wait do you see it? You'll see it.
I'm definitely going to check it out as soon as we wrap this up. I'm actually looking forward to that. That's one of the best things about doing this kind of show. On this particular day, we do this, and then we go right into
Star Trek.
Right into Star Trek Picard. It's great.
Why'd you let you go watch it?
It's going to be awesome. So
thanks for letting me pop off and yammer away.
Hey, it's always a pleasure, and I just appreciate the fact that we're going to be doing this on a weekly basis. There's always stuff to talk about, Rob.
Always. And, I just want to say it's been nice to get to know you and that we're streaming years later.
Years later.
How cool is that?
I mean, I remember the first time I had you on my internet radio thing, and I just remember it being at that time it was such a big deal, and it was a completely different medium.
Yeah.
And I never thought like I would ever transition into actually doing video. I was actually surprised when you started doing YouTube as well. And, from doing that, from going from, free enterprise and all the work that you do, in Hollywood in general with films and documentaries and different things that you do, to doing YouTube. And it's just been a beautiful thing to see.
I'll tell you what's really interesting. The thing about YouTube that I found really fascinating, to be honest, is that it is like being at a convention.
Yeah.
It's really like being at a science fiction convention. And I love it. And the fact is, look, I'm not going to lie. It is lucrative, and you can make a good living out of it, but it's a ton of work. But what I've found is that, I talk to a lot of people who get bummed out about where they are in life or whatever. And I'm like, YouTube has made me, I'm having a good time. I'm meeting people I don't know, or streaming with people that I respect, streaming with you. I have relationships with people I've met online. And then when I meet them in meet space or the real world or whatever you want to call it, it's like, hey, and we have a bond and a camaraderie. And, I've wanted to do since I started the YouTube channel, like an international tour. So like,
wow, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, just go to places and have meet and greets and open up, go live and talk to people, have cameras and microphones and have people sit down. Hey, man, what's going on? Tell me about yourself. What's it like to live here and all that?
Meet and greets in all the world's greatest pubs.
What, dude? That's like my dream job. I mean, how great would that be?
Be fantastic.
I would love it. I mean, the world's in a precarious place, but I'd still love to do it.
Yeah. It would all depend on timing.
Yes. Yes.
And Retro Nerd Girl says, I love the social aspect of YouTube, just talking about the things we love. It's so great. Yeah.
Well, and Retro Nerd Girl has her own channel.
Yeah, and Retro Nerd Girl's fantastic.
She's great. So good.
Yeah. Retro Nerd Girl Retro Nerd Girl has done some great live streams lately, and her regular channel where she does like straight up documentaries where talks about all these films. It's phenomenal.
And her choice wonderful. Of films, the films she's looked into is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, there's hope for the youth of the world.
It's like when you watch a Retro Nerd Girl video, it makes you go back and appreciate the movie all the more.
Yes.
Like I always say that when I had Retro Nerd Girl on a stream with me, I had told her that my favorite video of all the ones that she's done so far was when she talked about The Last Starfighter. She did this like documentary and she went deep into it about the movie. And I went back and rewatched the movie and listened to the commentary track and started thinking about it again and all these things. And it's just phenomenal content creator, and she's a super cool person too.
So totally. I mean, I've watched her, and I think I sent her a super chat once, I think. But her channel's great, and what I love is that, somebody significantly younger than me, I would say, but going back and giving these older movies a fair shake. She's not like, this movie's so ridiculous and blah. What I don't understand is like when I was growing up, when I was a kid watching movies at like 13, 14, 15, and when I was able to get things on home video, if I watched a movie that was made in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, whatever, I understood. Like the first thing in my mind is like, okay, I understand this movie was made like 40 years before I was born. So things were different. And I would go into it understanding that and give it all a pass. Nowadays, it's like, look at how funny this. It's so hilarious, and I hate that, because if you're comparing and contrasting something to today, you're missing what the movie's actually about. And exactly. I understand it's a little hard for people to put themselves into that place, but again, it's the difference between looking out at something and looking inward and expecting a movie to do what you want it to do.
It's like nowadays they wanna go in and edit books and burn books and edit movies and make changes to stuff. What happened to stuff being a product of its time? If you look at something like that, it's like what you just said about going back and looking at a movie and realizing it was made 40 years before you were born, and understanding the times were different back then. And that's just the way that it all should be looked at. There's no need to go in and try to rewrite history, try to edit movies to make them more what would be the word, more appropriate in today's climate. I don't get that. I don't get that.
And my problem is that everybody that wants to make things appropriate for today's climate, I don't believe that they know what that is.
Yeah, there's no clear defining.
No, and they're like, well, it offends. I'm like, okay, the world. I was offended that Christians were sacrificed in ancient Rome, in the in the Colosseum. How far back do you want to get your offense going? I mean, yeah, are you going to get all upset because of the Irish potato famine? Are you suddenly going to apologize to everybody of Irish descent that we treated them badly when they came here? I mean,
that's the thing I've never understood. Why go after people for things that were done like that and may hold them accountable now? Like, did you see there was all this? One of the things that a movie, I'll give you an example. For example, Tropic Thunder, right? At the time it came out, it was a comedy. Everybody thought it was funny. Everybody laughed. Everybody enjoyed it. Now, people are up in arms over it,
but they don't even understand.
Wanting to cancel people over it.
I mean, the whole thing is, if you watch that movie with Robert Downey Jr., he's like, "What do you mean, you people?" And then when the actual black actor turns and goes, "What do you mean, you people?" Like, if you don't understand the comedy and the satire,
yeah.
The satire is not understood. I mean, that movie is very anti-racism. It's anti-blackface. Look at Efron Guzman says episode 5 of Picard is a banger. Yeah, you just saw the scene I was talking about, didn't you? Yes, you did.
You must have.
And that's the thing. It's like people have forgotten it, and I'll tell you, because they're not looking outward. They're not looking at the world. They're not looking at the universe. They're looking like, what is it? Look, here's the problem. Why is everyone worried about if they're offended? I'm offended all the time. I don't let that stop me from doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
I'm offended by the ridiculousness of society today, but I don't say anything about it. I just say whatever, because times change. And every time, and that's the biggest problem I have. You try to change things to make them fit in with the sensibilities of where we are now, and essentially history is going to look back on that as complete idiocy, because things are going to change again. And what's going to happen 100 years from now when things are different again, and things are, or even 20 years from now, a different era, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they look back at this and they say, oh, those people were idiots. What were they thinking? Well, that's
dude,
where we are. That's where we are.
Listen, I must go, but this is a great show, man.
I was about to wrap this up, so we'll do this again next week. It was a great show. But before you go, I want to talk to you about something really quick. Backstage, if you got a minute.
I do.
And I want to thank everybody for being here. This was a phenomenal stream. It was fun. And you can expect me, Rob, and Mikey next week.
And you're going to have a whole splash of color next week. Magentas and blues, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be so awesome.
I can switch between camera angles. Maybe one day I'll finally bring my Shure microphones to bear and be like, oh, all right, I can now sound like Barry White.
Crooked Eye and Pet James Gunn. Well, on that note, we're going to say goodnight to everybody here, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.
Oh, my God. Thanks for being here.